This podcast is sponsored by our SA Rock and Metal fans Facebook page.
Strap yourself in, because we're set up, switched on, and ready to go.
All right, we're recording. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk to Trev, and welcome to a very long-awaited podcast with the heavy metal titans, AGRO.
Yoo-hoo!
How's that for a fucking intro?
Good morning. Yeah.
Fuck
Good
yeah,
morning.
guys.
Good afternoon, Trevor. We finally get to talk to the Trev, man. That is pretty awesome.
Hey, this is weird, man, because there's obviously a history with us, and it's kind of weird to have this conversation. I sound like a fucking robot at this conversation happening right now. Fucking hell, this is weird. So, I mean,
Why is it weird, dude?
Well, we're not going to get into the semantics of it, but, you know.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, okay, no problem. Yeah, go for it, dude.
So, I mean, basically, you guys have been around for fucking ever. So, when did AGRO start?
Clip?
Yeah, it's always a sort of a contentious sort of. There's no right answer to this, but I suppose the band is official when you have your first gig, and the first gig was in the end of '93. That was at a birthday party, and then our first club gig was very shortly after, which was in the 17th of February 1994. So that's, in my opinion, when the band officially started. However, the founding members had the idea of starting the band long before that, probably around 91, 92, but the band only became a band in 93 and started gigging the club circuit in 17th of February 1994, Club Dylan's in Yeovil.
Dude, I mean, that's a fucking long time. I mean, we're talking about the same sort of timeline that Lithium started, also in 93, thereabouts. So, I mean, that's a hell of a long time.
Lithium, Nude Girls, Squeal, Sugar Drive, we all sort of kicked off at roughly the same time. And it's a fond memory for me, when we first hit the scene. With our first single, Barney Simon played it on his modern rock charts, and our single at the time was ahead of Springbok Nude Girls' first single at the time, which was Bubblegum on My Boots, and our single was Lean on Me, and those two were neck and neck on the charts.
Wow.
And so I have a fond memory of that, and they got to number one and we didn't, so I've had this hatred for them ever since.
And look where they are now, huh? Jeez.
It was just such innocent times, because that we were just a bunch of bands with nothing more than demos out, really. And when I was listening to our single, I had no idea that we'd be around nearly 30 years later, and I had no idea, what Springbok Nude Girls were about to become. And it's
what Lithium was not going to become, which is kind of fucks me off, because obviously my close association, but that's how it goes, right?
Lithium had a good go at it, but unfortunately for them, they were branded. EMI branded them as South Africa's answer to Nirvana, I guess, or Pearl Jam, a grunge band. But grunge was already on its way out when they were trying to market them here.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they got pigeonholed, and I think that counted against them, because they were a decent band.
Yep, they were. So, Nick, living in Oz, how's life?
Oz is very much like South Africa, really. To be honest with you, it's easy to live. I live in a place a lot like you. Away from the big city, but close to the beach. It's nice and sunny at the moment, about 30 degrees, 7 o'clock at night. It's cool, man.
And what was your first recollection of AGRO?
Oh, Cliff, tell the long story and the short story, dude.
I'm a tiny good guy. You know, we're trying to get what 27, 28 years into 40 minutes. Go for it, man.
All right, let's go. All right, so because I'm a bit younger than the other dudes, I was sort of.
Did you hear that, Cliff?
Rub it in,
Yeah.
rub it in.
He's fucking
No,
off
that-
already. Yes.
Yeah, no, they had already started playing. That's what I'm trying to say. They already started playing, and we were still kids, trying to check out what the scene was. And I remember them having a concert. Well, I remember it vividly. They had a concert at the waterfront at Kebab Junction, the waterfront in Joburg. Kebab Junction. It was the smallest, tiniest little place on earth, and they were playing their tunes, and then Cliff disappeared into the toilet, which was right next to the stage, while they were playing something. And the next thing I see is Cliff coming out of the toilet, butt naked, except for a massive G-string dildo on. And just waved it around everywhere. It was, I'm like, these guys are having so much fun. It was hilarious. It was so cool. Like, they're playing brutal death metal, and he's waving his dong around. It's absolutely, I loved it. That's my first recollection. The next day we went to Megavox, which was again at the waterfront, and I bought Eyes, the second album, which was out at the time. That day. That's my first recollections of AGRO.
Wow, Cliff, do you remember that show?
I remember it. So I remember it quite clearly. And for the record, it wasn't a dildo, man. It was
What was it?
A sock.
It was like it was something along those lines, though. It was an elephant trunk.
Exactly. It was like a jock strap kind of thing. Like a flesh-colored jock strap, which had a really, really long. I suppose an elephant trunk is a better example because but it was a special. I remember we played a gig in Pretoria, and we walked past a shop, and they were selling all sorts of weird shit. I said, "Man, this is funny. I've got to buy this. This will be a laugh and a half. And I bought it, and it became sort of like a stage prop for must be half a dozen shows. It was a good old laugh. I had the body for it those days.
It was hilarious. I'll never ever forget that. It was cool, and they were playing an instrumental. And Cliff, because we were sitting down at a table drinking beers, Cliff comes down, sits next to us with his big jockstrap, dildo, elephant trunk. Us going, the dudes drank a couple of beers while the dudes were doing their instrumental. Got back on stage and finished the show, and I'm like, "Yep, that guy will drink my beers for the rest of my life. That's how it is."
That particular gig, there was an infamous photo taken, which actually made it into Top 40 magazine back in the day.
Really?
And I was actually embarrassed as hell because I was working in a music shop as well, and everybody was buying this magazine and rushing forward, to me to acknowledge, and I open the magazine and there's moms and dads and everybody hanging around, and there's me hanging, oh man,
Hanging,
it was
literally hanging.
really. And because it was a black and white picture, you couldn't see the sort of flesh-colored jockstrap kind of thing, and it just it looked all wrong from every angle. And I must say, it was quite more than one red face every time that magazine came up. Yeah.
It was freaking hilarious, dude, though. Let's be honest. It was awesome. It was hilarious at the time.
Those days were so carefree. We could literally do anything for a laugh and get away with it.
Nowadays, you can't.
Everything was how can we have more fun than the show before? And I think that's what became sort of the, how can I say, that's what separated us from the other bunch who were, the rest of the bands at the time were being very serious. We were being the exact opposites. Although we were serious about the actual performance, anything went. And so people would come to a show, and even if it was a shitty little dive in Randburg waterfront, that could hold 30 people, at least 29 of them would be having a good laugh, and it was
Absolutely.
it was great days. That we sort of kept that sort of image of the band going for a good couple of years. But obviously we had to slow down because we were we were harming ourselves. There were stage injuries. There was just taking things too far. And eventually wisdom prevailed, and we started concentrating on music.
So
That's to me that's one of the misunderstood things, sort of, in the metal scene in South Africa about AGRO, that we have. And because I've been on the other side, not being a member of the band to being a member of other bands, and how people think and what they talk, what they say about us, and what they think we are about. They misunderstand us having fun on stage as disrespect to everyone else, and that we don't take stuff seriously. It's nothing like that. We just liked and still do like to have fun, maybe in different ways nowadays, but everything for a laugh. We never took ourselves that seriously.
Nick, we were one of the only bands that would get up there unscripted. Right down to the set list. We always had a bunch of songs rehearsed, and we would bang out whatever seemed like the right idea at the time. And everything. Obviously, we would discuss a few things before. We would plan a few wardrobes and a few things like that. But 99% of the time, it was like pushing play and see what the hell happened,
and go shuffle. Absolutely. It was I sort of had to put a stop to that when I joined the band, because I had, obviously, playing keyboards, I have presets for every single song and so on. And then when Cliff goes, then we play this song, and I go, dude, I do not have presets for this song. What are you talking about? It's completely weird. And after 2 or 3 shows, I'm like, dudes, we need to stick to a set list somehow. That needs to happen. So that kind of, sorry, it's my fault, kind of went out the window a little bit, but we still kept having fun on stage, and that's to me is a big part of who we are.
So let's just touch on the album that I was involved with. Was it a year ago, or just over a year, 2 years ago? The Bitter End. So when,
last year, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So why release an album after such a long break?
Well, it's dude. The last, the first 10 years of AGRO was as we discussed, just a bunch of kids having fun. The second 10 years of AGRO was a little different. As I say, we became more serious. We became a lot more focused on the music and what we needed to do, and you grow up, times change, and you change with the times. And what happened was that the lineup changed quite a lot, and cut a very long story short, there was a lot of internal issues in the making of the Bitter End with the lineup at the time. We had key members quit the band, we had other members join, but there wasn't, how can I say, there wasn't the camaraderie I'd always hoped or was kind of used to, and it started becoming a bit businessy. And then what happened was that album never transpired, and it never got finished. I moved to Ireland. I uprooted and moved to Ireland in 2015, and the album was an absolute mess. It was a shambles, and I never thought it would be released. Well, I never thought it would be finished, let alone released. And then I'd been chatting with Nick, and then he asked for the tracks to see what he could do, because he had set up a studio in Australia. So I sent him the tracks, and it was so bad. There was nothing he could do or fix in the mix, so he had to literally re-record half of the album on his own. And once that process started, we could hear that something was going to happen. And and then basically, if there's one person that deserves a mask and a cape, it would be Nick, because he saved that album from fucking nothing. You know, it was.
Wasn't there like a flood or something in the studio, Nick?
Oh, mate, there was it's a.
Did you hear the Aussie there, Cliff? Did you hear that? Oh, mate.
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, you know,
From time to time, it will come through. Yeah, there was a flood. There was 2 floods.
From the start of the recording of that album till just about the day before it got released, there was nothing but disaster after disaster after disaster. You know, the flood was just one of the many disasters. Yeah. But you go on.
But no, it's basically I had to record everything. Then we changed houses. Then I forgot. Then the hard drive exploded. Then there was a flood. Then there was another flood. I couldn't get the hardware to work, the software to work. Nothing was happening. I was pulling my hair out, but I managed to get everything going. That's why it was getting pulled back and more and more and more. I mean, the album itself was ready, mixed and ready to go in about 2017. Really, I mean, the track. You see, they sent me the tracks. They sent me the stems. I mean, the recordings. What they did, they sent them to me, and I could hear the music in them, but I just didn't. The recording wasn't very good. It wasn't done very well. And
it was shocking.
It was a bit shocking, yes. And I just had to start from the beginning. I had the tracks to work with and record everything, and little by little it came together. It shouldn't have taken as long, but my house flooded a week before we were to release, and I thought I lost things, and it's okay. But it's come out now, so it's all good. And we actually really liked it. I really liked the album. I mean, I don't think I wrote much for it. Only an intro here and there, or melody here and there. I mean, it was mostly down to the other dudes that were in the band at the time. But I really like the direction that they were taking at the time, and it was I really could hear AGRO in the music, even though it was written by different people to the ones I used to be in the band with, and that was cool.
Now, what about the latest one now, The Tree? Is this a single now? Is this an album, or what's the story now?
Okay. The Tree is an album recorded and released in 1999 on a small independent label, and the name of the label escapes me now. But just give me 1 second. I'll tell you what it was.
Alter
it was
Ego?
Alter Ego. That's right, and that was owned by Ashton Knight from The Awakening. He had the label and he distributed the album for us. And the album gained a lot of traction, but once the initial run was done and we had moved on to the next album and the new phase of the band, it's like it got deleted. There was never a re-release, and it was a case of we'll get around to it. We'll press more copies and we'll distribute it at a later stage, and that never happened. And so that album, I mean, there was a couple thousand printed, and they were sold, and that's where it died. And so we got chatting recently, myself and Nick, and it's like, you know, it shouldn't be that way. I mean, there are people, including myself, that hadn't heard the album for over 20 years.
Yeah.
So we went back as far as The Tree, and we're going to release all the albums that we have recorded from there in chronological order, in digital format. You know, so just so those forgotten albums have got time and space for the people that enjoyed it back then. And
well,
obviously,
I'm looking forward to hearing it, because just the other day on the 1st of Feb, you said the second album's going to be re-released, and that's forthcoming, and that's going to be on the 22nd of Feb. So that's right. I mean, geez, this is so awesome that all this old stuff is making light again. And it was one of the things we talked about ages ago.
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
before I even did podcasts, and we were saying, guys, you got so much stuff, you've got to release it. I'm so happy.
I've got to say, it was probably you that gave us the push to actually do this.
I
To be
planted
honest.
the seed. I'm the seed of
You did,
AGRO.
yeah. You've also planted a seed for maybe us recording new stuff too.
Yes.
Don't sell yourself short, mate.
I'm glad, man. I'm just glad that the music is getting the light of day now. And
Yeah.
it's about time. Like you're saying, there's a whole history of aggro that people have not heard, and these new fans, young fans, that are going to be going, "What? This was back when?" And that's the beauty of it all, man. And it's got to be done.
Yeah.
It has to be done. It has to be released. I'm so glad that you guys are actually gonna fucking do it. It's about time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
when you listen, yep, go for it.
Yeah, in the sort of heyday of things, I mean, digital wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And, first, I would say our first 5-6 albums,
Yeah.
I mean, there was no Spotify or anything like that. So you release it physically, and that's that. And then I don't know why, Nick. I mean, the thought never even crossed my mind. I mean, that was the work of the record company. That was the work of the record label to put stuff out digitally. I couldn't have given two shits. I never even gave it thought, to be honest. I mean, when I found, I think there was two of our previous albums had made its way onto the digital platform, and that was the record companies who owned the works at the time. They're the ones who did it. I mean, it's not something I ever considered, although I enjoyed the digital platform, and that's pretty much 99% of the way I've been consuming music for the last 6-7 years. But it's not something we ever even discussed as a band. Am I right, Nick?
No, absolutely. We never thought of it.
So when the seed was planted, and I'm assuming it was in a conversation similar to this with the likes of probably yourself. The penny, guys, it's actually not that hard to buy back or get back our own music and get it out there. I mean, there's if you exclude the new album, there's 7 albums before that that haven't seen the light of day, except for the people lucky enough to pick up a physical copy, and because no one's distributing. I mean, there might still be a few copies in circulation of the Ritual 6 album, because that was on a German label, and sometimes I do a bit of research, and there's still certain outlets that supply that album, but the rest all just
That's kind of interesting, though, Cliff. I mean, who has the rights to do that, though? Is it the record label that you were signed with? If that's the case, and you're no longer signed with them, surely it's your property?
We lost a lot of very, very good opportunities in the beginning, based on decisions that management at the time made for us. So, cut a long story short, we purposely stayed independent. I mean, please God, it wasn't a case of labels were knocking on our door every day. No, it wasn't at all like that. But we didn't go shopping the way we should have, or so we always owned our own music. But what we did was, and then we would market it and promote it ourselves, and then we'd get it pressed up, usually a joint venture with a distribution company.
Right.
Okay. The only investment from their side would be to manufacture the album. The production and the recording was always taken care of by ourselves. Okay. So we didn't owe anybody anything. All right. So we were always able to stay ahead of the pack that way, in terms of our songs belonged to us. However, because we were a small independent label ourselves, going under the name Evolution Music, we didn't have the marketing team that the major labels had, that could have taken us to the levels we believed, well, the levels we were aiming at. So that was just one of the massive headaches at the time, because it was a catch-22 situation. We were in control of our music, and we were making, we were getting return on our investment, But anyway, I suppose the less I say about old management, the better. But
Well,
Of
I mean,
course.
do they really give a shit now? Probably not. Well, do they even exist?
No.
Probably not.
no, I'm not going to say anything, bro, because there's just too much. But there was two albums. There was the Guarded in Hell album, which was owned by ENT Music, which was a sub label of Sony Music.
Right.
And I think they still got the rights to that.
They
So
do.
that's why
They do, yeah.
See, this is what I don't understand. How long can they hold the rights for, though? Forever?
Well, dude, if I knew about law, I'd look into it. But I don't know. So it's just one of those things you just sort of let by, And if we put it this way, if we wanted the album, we'd have to go into a negotiation where we would buy the rights for it back. This just
drives me up the fucking wall. That just drives me up the. I don't understand how somebody that was not involved in the creative process can hold it.
No, dude, no, I do get it, because they're the bankers, they're the investors, man.
Yeah.
And I know, I'm not talking in our league. I mean, we small fry really, but in pop music, yes, it's criminal what goes on, and to a large degree, struggling bands. But in our situation, the album we spoke about, it wasn't that bad. I mean, what we could do is we would go to the label, we would buy 100 copies or whatever the case may be, 50 copies at wholesale price, and we could sell it at gigs and make money. But the label was able to get it into every shop. I mean, we're talking physical those days.
Yeah,
they were able to get
enough,
and every web zine and it got the proper marketing it deserved. That we couldn't do. We liked to think we could do it, but we couldn't. And then fast forward to what was it, 2000 and I think it was 2005, the Ritual 6 album that got a proper deal with the Armageddon Music in Germany. They signed up the album, although we paid for the recording, but they owned that flat out. And we've never been able to touch the album. In fact, I think they posted us 5 copies.
Yeah, it was something along those days. Yeah, it was something on that. We got 5 copies, one for each member. That was it.
And that's
terrible.
And then somewhere down the line, and I'll have to ask Robbie. A couple of years later, or some time later, they got hold of Robbie, and they sent some royalties from downloads, and we split it 5 ways, and I think we had a beer each.
We got a bit drunk, actually. Yeah.
You know what? I think this is why bands go independent now, don't they? Because then they can control every aspect of their.
Now, I agree. It makes more sense now. I mean, I don't know much about it. I'm a little bit, but if you take that rap fella, that Tom McDonald, I mean, he is making an absolute killing as a one-man independent show. He's got nothing except his songs, and but you've got the platform now. You can go viral. You can put out a song on YouTube or TikTok or whatever now, and the world knows it.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to sell physical copies, so I get it now. Perhaps we were thinking too far ahead those days, huh?
Well, I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the sad thing of it all is that what is yours that you wrote with your own mind is no longer yours, and that to me is incredibly sad.
Yeah, look, that's the industry. It's always been for the fat cats, It's if you're going to, and it's good advice. And if any youngsters came up to me and asked, I would tell them, straight up, if you want to enter the music industry, especially now, go to school and learn, do a course in business management. You run your band or your little music label as a business. If you don't, and you hand it over to other business people, you know what, dude, you're just gonna be a dude at work.
Yeah.
You know? And you're gonna have a boss, and there's a hierarchy, and depending on the structures of that hierarchy, that's how the finances will be distributed. But you're just a worker at the bottom.
Okay, guys. I think. Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on. Independent is the way to go, and for me, it's always been in most things. It's always been about having the control over situations that you can control, rather than relying on other people and being let down or screwed over. So, you know, it's a lesson well learned, I think, and from here on in, agro's on the up, which is fucking brilliant. So besides the forthcoming coming out on 22nd of Feb, what's going to be released thereafter? Because we're fast running out of time now. We've got less than 6 minutes to go.
Really? Oh, it's been a good chat. That's quickly.
The first two albums we did, that won't be seeing the light of day. So we started from our third album, which was The Tree. So we're putting out that. Then it was Forthcoming. Then I think the next one to...
Ritual 6?
Which one's that? Ritual 6?
Yeah.
And then, or is it just those three?
And Rewriting History, which is our compilation album that we re-recorded, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was re-recordings of the first couple of albums that we aren't releasing because the production was so bad. But, you know, that album, we were able to fix up things that we always wanted to fix. And yeah, so those 4 albums will be coming out digitally. The Guided in Hell album we can't because it belongs to somebody else.
Can't you re-record
it? Well, no.
And so fuck them and just do it yourself?
No, of course we can. That album was a very unique album. It was very spontaneous. It was a mood. It was a. You'll never be able to recapture that mood. There's certain albums, you know, if you, I'm just trying to think, you know, let's take certain live albums, because it was pretty much, in my opinion, like a live album. You can't recapture it.
Yeah.
You know, technically you can give it your best shot, but you're never going to have that. You know, that album was about the time, the place, the lineup, and what was in our heads at the time. You know?
Yeah.
And it's also an album of covers. I mean, we like doing metalizing songs, basically.
Right.
And that's what the whole album is. It's just us being silly at one side, on one side, and paying homage to the songs that we like, pop songs, punk songs, you know.
yeah.
Like
absolutely.
so it's a bit of a pointless thing to re-record it. As Cliff said, we're never gonna get that sort of vibe again. I mean, we can redo it, but
licensing for covers is very, very
It's
expensive
not
to pay.
Yeah, that's turning into a headache as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen the fees for that, and it's like $12 a song.
Yeah.
A year, not just one.
You know,
song.
that's one side, but it's mostly let the album be as it is.
So, any videos in the making to accompany any future releases?
As soon as we finish the video, I'm going to get on to Nick, and we're going to have a bit of a brainstorm, because there's still a lot of life in the Bitter End album, and I still think 1 or 2 singles need to be put out there in the form of a music video. So,
Heavy Falls the Blade, man! What a fucking song that is!
That is a good song, dude.
I've got a good couple of concepts, and you know, nowadays to make a cheap video that looks good is also not so hard.
Everything is so easy. Everything's at your fingertips these days. But okay, guys, so less than 3 minutes to go. So everything, people that are listening to this podcast or watching the podcast on the YouTube channel, everything will be in the description below. All the links to all of AGRO's stuff, where to get the music, where to stream it, Facebook pages, whatever else there is. So Nick and Cliff, you guys are fucking awesome, man. I'm so glad I met you fucking guys, and that I was but a small cog in the machine to get things moving, and I'm forever grateful for that because it's pushed me in a direction that I'm very happy with. So from me to you guys, thank you so much. It's been awesome to chat to you, and no doubt we'll chat to each other on WhatsApp and wherever else. And thank you is all I can say.
Tim, thanks for the opportunity, giving us the time to speak, man. I appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine, guys. Keep
Thanks,
safe,
buddy.
keep well, and we'll chat over WhatsApp and wherever else.
100%. My boy too.
Cheers, everyone.
Alrighty, fellas. Keep well, keep safe, man. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.